Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram language design review session, part of our language completeness and consistency series. And we have a few topics here. I'm surprised we don't have more topics actually, but uh, you know, let's okay. Let's
So
talk about this topic. What's that?
yes, I was going to say you sent an email with that basically being the entirety of the content of the email. So
Okay, all right. Here's what I had in mind. I've got a typical. Let's find a typical kind of. Let me find one. Um, okay, take a random thing I've written, find a random, yeah, okay. So, gosh, why is that in two? Okay, here we go. There's okay. This is a table, as you can see, okay?
yep.
It's got certain content here. I mean, I don't know, let's pull out that content, right? Let me just, make that foo equals that content, and let's compute that. Just, I don't know how long it takes. No idea. Okay. So now all of this junk, okay? So let's talk about this. Okay, this table has some more detail in it, but the fact that there's a header line, a header on the top, a thing on the left. In this particular case, it has very specific reasons to have stripes in it. But just even like a header on the left, a header on the right, this question about frame arrow interior would be the idea of, there's frame arrow all. If I say grid, let's say table X, 3, 4 or something, 3, 5, and now I say frame arrow all. Great. Okay. Now I say frame arrow true. Okay. Now what I want to do is, let's say I want the interior frame. Okay. That is, I want the complement of these two frames.
Right, which you actually can't get using frame. You need to use dividers, which is a little confusing. It's documented but confusing, right? Frame counts, entries, whereas dividers counts the spaces between entries.
All right, fine. But so if I said, for example, the same thing, and I said, well, maybe I'm just being confused here. I mean, if I said dividers arrow all,
that includes everything. It's basically the same as frame equals all, at least in this case, right? So you'd need to do this complicated thing. Yeah, I mean, I think you'd need to do like list, false, well, it's list, then false, then the list containing true, then false, and repeat that as the second entry.
Right. So that's unbelievably obscure.
Yes.
Right. And so what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, so dividers go, maybe we can do this using frame also. I'm not sure. Maybe we should have invited Lou. But
well,
yeah,
I mean, that's the detail. I'm talking
okay.
about a framework type thing. Okay. So there are a couple of different possibilities. I mean, one is a grid theme type thing.
Which we have talked about.
Yes. I'm a little bit unconvinced about that because honestly, okay, that's one possibility. Another possibility which occurs to me is an association that has things in it where there's a big long list of things you can, imagine there was a giant dialog box of different things you can do, header colors, header, whatever it is, header, number of header lines, header color, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And that what we do is we have two things. We have our existing frame, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have, which is very structurally oriented. And then we have essentially functionality oriented, a giant association. Let me give an analogy. Okay. In the cellular automaton function, we have two different ways to specify the rule. One is by a very compact kind of structural method. The other is by saying things like dimensionality, two, neighborhood, named neighborhood, blah, 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 etc. Is this making any sense? So, I mean, in other words, that in addition to our very compact, I mean, you know, the real problem is, maybe what we need, I mean, the problem is that there are categories of things like the headers, what we might call a header, alternating rows. I don't know what else. We're not bank describing those things very well. And that's also a nuisance. If you change, one of the things that's happened to me is, see all those range 3,7s and so on. Well, if I add a row in here, that's all toast.
Mm-hmm.
Everything misaligns and so on and so on and so on. So it'd be better if I could say, I just want the top line, the left-hand column, to be a particular form, and then I want this, and etc.
But I can you use negative indices? I don't remember. Brett, maybe you remember. I think you can use. There is a rule form for these specs, which actually is
that
what
looks
you
like
seem
what
to be
he's
using. Right, he is using. You are using the rule form, which I think does accept negative specs. So you could at least fix some of those things, and maybe anything that you can't fix is sufficiently complicated that you wouldn't. We wouldn't design a language to handle it. It is.
Yeah, but look at how complicated all that stuff is.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm just saying that if you right, I mean, it's easy enough to say, the first column and the last column, which either we can already do it using negative indices, or we should be able to. But if you have enough things that isn't enough, then any language we're going to design will probably not include that, and you'll be stuck doing this.
Well, I mean, so I think, I'm wondering whether this could be expanded to take span. I mean, and that's probably a Lou question.
We had done something with span, and I don't remember.
I mean, because then you could say 2 to the end, which is what a lot of the ones in this are.
Right.
Yes, in this particular case. But I can imagine, look, let's look at the kinds of things one wants to do. Wants to have a header on the left or on the top.
Mm-hmm.
One might want to have a summary on the right, like a total or something like that.
Yes, or the bottom.
Yeah, right. So in a sense, it's the rind of the table has special things in it. That's one case. The other case is that the table is really a multi-segmented table. It's really a table in table. It's 3 tables, all on top of each other with more serious separators between the different pieces, possibly with subtotals.
Right. In which case you might actually want to be using multiple nested grids rather than one grid with a gazillion options.
Well, except that usually things don't line up properly then. Look, I think our grids have, the raw functionality is just fine. The accessibility is awful. As this example here illustrates. So, what would make it better?
Mm-hmm.
And one possibility that I want to again say is an association that just has many different things that you can use to get the same result. And the question of what takes precedence, well, that's a detailed question. But the basic point would be, let's say it says, I don't know.
I mean, I think anything that you came up with would end up being just as complicated as what you have here. It might be slightly
but
differently packaged.
Yeah,
but
it's differently complicated because here's what it is. It's just you pick things from a menu, basically. And by menu, I mean like a menu at a restaurant rather than a menu in a software system. right? In other words, it would say, look, let me show you the example of cellular automata.
So how's that different from a grid theme?
It might not be, except that in a grid theme, what I was thinking about more here was something where there are many.
Right. I mean, have you ever looked at the plot theme page?
Well, I mean, beyond that, I mean, we have data set themes, don't we?
Let's look at a couple of things here. Okay, so cellular automaton. Okay, so there's all these forms here, right? Which are kind of, for simple cases, they're very nice. For more complicated cases, they can get very complicated. Then what we did was we named a bunch of those cases. Okay. And these are very overlapping. You know, you could, if you specified multiple things here, you could over specify things easily. But they're convenient for common cases that you want. All right, let's look at plot themes.
Right. So you have the main overarching themes, but then you can customize all sorts of.
I know. But what we've done here, the difference here is that, I mean, these are just names of things. They're not settings. You don't say open markers, arrow, whatever it is.
Correct.
Just say open markers, right? And I mean, maybe there's a way of doing this for grids that will be enough. I don't know. I think the real problem is, you've got to go in and say which element gets which thing. Like, let's say thick lines or something. You don't want the whole, making the whole grid with thick lines is very unlikely to be what you want. You probably want a separator somewhere inside the grid.
Right, but I don't think that those would be the sort of themes we'd want for a grid, right? I mean, I think we'd want something like shaded headers, bolded headers.
So look at data set themes. Which, I mean, I think still need work, but
I have never used these. I simply have never used these. And that's pathetic under representation of examples. And
right, and so here they do give you the ability to add some parameters.
Yeah, which is in a horrendously done way, in my opinion. It's just horrendous.
Well, why is that horrendous? I mean, that's a very common way to, right? You could leave it off, or you could.
I know, but the thing is that this is. I'd much prefer alternating row backgrounds to true or to light blue than this weird positional.
And what light blue?
Goes
true.
True.
As opposed to false.
Yeah. No, I understand the alternating row backgrounds goes to true, but then where does the light blue go?
On the right-hand side. Instead of it being arrow true, it's arrow light blue.
I see. And then the next case would be the list.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I mean, I would prefer automatic rather than true in that case, automatic versus none. So
although, I mean, it's still, it gets into the case of, you have to package up that, in your example on the left, you have sort of two columns of headers. I mean, one is actually a header and one is something different from all the other columns.
I know. It's a fairly complicated case, so I'm not. I mean, I'm
right, which is getting back to what I was saying of, like, this particular table may be such that there is no reasonably simple language that actually
Okay, so
encompasses it.
what I'm suggesting is that we do things like let's say column header format or something. That's not necessary.
Right. I mean, I will just point out, one of my concerns is that, right, we already have two different languages for these options, right? We have the original grid box language and then the somewhat cleaned up language we created for grid. And, and so
the original grid box language is absolutely subterranean.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying it exists. And I mean,
I haven't thought about that in 20 years.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's more likely to say that you haven't thought about it in 16 years since there was a grid, but
right, whatever.
Right, but we have a translation between those, and you can create these things and then you can edit them and the things are preserved. Now, if we create yet another language, I mean, I don't know that this thing will be at all editable, right? So it'll display beautifully, but the moment you edit it, you might lose everything. I know this is right. I think that needs a discussion with like Lou and John.
What's happened to the editability of data sets?
I think that went into hibernation when Chris Carlson retired. And Jose is here, so he can speak up if I'm misrepresenting that, but.
Well, we placed it in the X kernel and then it entered into conflicts with something else and was removed. You remember that, didn't I?
Okay.
All right, but then, so we
right,
should.
But even when it was an external, it wasn't being actively worked on, as far as I know.
Okay, can somebody make sure it's in the global project list?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay. Let's see. So, look, I'm not giving up here. I mean, I think, but by the way, I mean, I haven't used, what is it called? Table view. What is it called? The
Table view.
No. What's the thing that's the editable version of what the heck? What's wrong with that? What the heck? Oh, don't tell me this is broken. Come on, guys. Okay. Come on, we can do better than this. Do you see what I did?
You just said all X's.
Yeah, I had
I know what the issue is. You're right that the default format is not expression, right? I think that
but that's obviously wrong. It's obviously wrong. This shouldn't do that with no message, no. Yeah, it's just crazy.
It's a low-level control. It's not crazy. I mean, if you do, row with invalid arguments, it just sort of sits there.
I know, but this isn't a low-level control. This is intended for people actually doing, editing things. I mean, I was intending to use it. I had something. I was going to keep a bunch of values where I want to enter things every so often. I was going to use this. So that's just not good enough, that it just does nothing in that case. Also, I have no idea why the fonts are so stupid here. I don't know.
Okay, well, there's nobody here who can speak to that.
Is Jeremy here by now?
I'm here, yeah. I think Billy's here. The fonts are just standard code font for numbers. We didn't choose source sans, which we could have, but we just left it as the standard code font.
I don't think it looks right.
I think the argument
on the
John
headers
might
or the
say is
cells or both.
the zeros are distinct from the O's in this case, which might be one argument
Well, wait a minute.
against source.
In this case here, okay, so first of all, the fact that it jumps to make a double height, multi-height thing in that case, just totally with the thing off center is just bonkers. You see that?
Mhm.
It's just a stupid bug of some kind. Okay. So, I mean, I absolutely do not buy Itai's argument. This is intended as a top level, used by users type thing. It is not a low level control.
But it is a control, just like, tree view and all those other controls.
I know.
Right? And right, they don't issue messages. They provide interfaces to the front end.
Well, they pink. They pink. If something goes-
Stylistically sometimes, but
Okay, listen, this is not right. This should just work. But we don't have the right people in this meeting to figure out why. So can somebody please take that up with John Fultz? I also just think this font is wrong.
We can make it look better, but the benefit is the zeros and O's look different, the slash zero.
Because we don't have, in this particular case, in fact, as we just learned here, we can't even deal with O's.
You can, but can you have strings? Those are
I think you can
symbols.
have strings.
I think you can have pure strings, pure numbers, but not symbols. Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
they're quoted, so that helps. But I didn't think they were quoted by default.
Yeah, do right. Make
the one he was editing is in input form, or is in an input cell.
Yeah. So right. So in your random replace your random integer of 100 with the string capital O.
Okay. Why is that quoted there?
Because you explicitly typed it in, right? It's already the raw type. So.
Well, I think the thing is that it's in an input cell instead of an output cell.
Oh, that might also be the case.
No, it was in the output cell as well.
Yeah, that's
no.
True.
Okay, fine.
I don't know why that happened.
I see. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, honestly, this looks pretty good here. This seems useful. I mean, the use case that I have for it involves entering numbers from like pieces of paper. Okay, for which I think this is probably pretty good. Tabs through and so on. Yeah, it's nice. Let's clean it up so people can actually use it. I mean, it does seem to be, I don't know, does it have more than 3 examples? Yes, it does actually have more than 3 examples. Oh gosh, then we have text grid, don't we? Which desperately needs more examples and desperately needs a thing that does better than just saying has the same options as grid. How many times do I have to tell people we can't do that?
Well, until the infrastructure is in place to deal with it.
I thought we've worked on that infrastructure. Is that not done?
It's not done. Talk to Brian. I mean, until Brian provides us with something, this will not be fixed.
So that is why they can't cancel the monthly documentation meeting for tomorrow. So that they need to deal with. I mean, I don't know what's happened to that. Let me send mail about that. Well, maybe Avery could perhaps take that message that issue has to be fixed. Has to be a way to do this, because I'm we got to actually not have this in another version, the same nonsense again. And I gave them a roadmap for how to build the infrastructure. If they don't agree with it, they should tell me. Otherwise, they should build it.
Yep. I can pass that along.
I think with a little bit of force, because I'm not happy that they tried to cancel that meeting.
Okay, can we move on to the next item? Because I think it would be more productive if I had a focused meeting with, John and Lou and Brett, and we
About this?
About the general issue of grid. And
Okay, but let me just summarize where I think we're potentially going with this, okay? It is my feeling, not super strong, okay? I think themes will only get us so far, because I think that there's an awful lot that has to be specific to, I want these locations to work this way. And what I think is that, okay, so I'm going to make a claim. Okay, my claim is going to be that there are named positions in a grid. And that if we had something where, just like we can right now have position 3-7 goes to whatever, I might be wrong about this. I mean, maybe what we want to be able to say, maybe we can already do this, is to say one blank goes to whatever. Or maybe the alternative to that is headers or row headers or something, column headers goes to whatever. So what I'm suggesting is that we simply, claim, might not be right, that the major problem is that we need named locations in the grid. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know if one blank actually works. I mean, let's try that. I mean, if I say grid, this thing here, and I say, background arrow, and then I say, let's just do a very raw thing, which, one blank arrow red. Splatteroo. See if that works.
Sure, try 1-1. That I think would be, that would certainly help with a fair.
Well, I think there's another possibility, which is that it has to be this.
Okay.
Nope.
There's a lot of different ways of adding lists around this thing that I might try, but
yeah, but you see, we're losing the game here. I mean, you see what I'm saying? If we could have a way to, let's imagine that.
So I think one possibility,
right? But could you try
is that we add a
1-1?
way of specifying named types of things. So this span of positions is a header position.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm suggesting.
And then we leverage
so
what we have in the dataset themes, which are designed around doing things with headers, doing things with
Look, I mean, if we could say background arrow, headers arrow light gray, that would already be helpful. Or even alternating rows, arrow green, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, I mean, if we did this, I think we'd probably want that to be an association, just so it's clearly distinct from all the other.
Good idea. That's a good idea. No, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. And I mean, we could do that, and we could even have an association where, if you want the thing, look, that's probably a solution, that it's just an association with named locations. And if you do have a specific, if you do have a specific cell, 1-1 arrow, whatever, fine, just put it in there. Right, but you have a bunch of named ones.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, how would that work? Let's say frame arrow, interior arrow true. I don't know whether that's the right way to do it.
Well, I think this needs to be dividers just because of the. I think if, but
I mean, there's, if you're revisiting this in modern times, I mean, you could have things like dividers goes to placed of string headers, comma below or something.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
We have, a lot more descriptive types of things these days than we did back in V6 era.
Yeah. I tend to think that there are things that we would really love to do with like callouts in a table, which is a quite separate issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be wonderful if we could do that. Drop shadows in parts of a table, things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sandra is commenting about large and long tables being able to freeze headers. Yeah, but I mean that's in the general category of, I mean, that's much more like table view or data set. That hasn't been a thing we've been providing for grid. So that's a separate issue. But I think the first thing we should look at is, I am pushing for right now named locations to which these things apply. I don't think that the background and things like that, I don't think those are that bad. I don't think there's anything wrong with those. I mean, we're mostly talking about, oh God, that annoys me so much. This doesn't have its options here. Gosh, that annoys me. Frame style, I get all those things. They're okay. Although we could have in the association for frame, we could allow something which has a yeah. Ethan has commented on the test case should be to replicate tables in academic papers, which are super hard to do in our system and in pretty much any other system. I mean, there are ones where you literally, you go in and you basically just give typesetting primitives. The problem is that we have automatically generated tables, and those are much harder to do than the ones that you could put in tech or something by hand, where it's 5 rows. Right? Those are vastly easier problem than what we have here. But look, I think we should figure out how to do this with names. And I think that the good news is that, like if you look at these things, even any one of these things, spacings, like, yeah, it's just totally obscure. Horizontal spacing, vertical spacing, just spacings, arrow, horizontal, arrow, blah, whatever, arrow, blah, etc. And I mean, sometimes I think we should start with this. Start with trying to do this. Does that seem reasonable to people?
You think so?
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. I will, like I said, I'm not going to actually agree to anything without talking to John and Lou first. But
look at this. Look at what I just saw here. Look at what I just saw here. Now, would anybody ever have figured this out? Look at this. I'm going to show you something amazing. Wait a minute. Common settings for frame include center, and it's pink. That's not what it says it should do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Looks like it got translated badly into something.
Okay, well, it doesn't even have an example, does it? Okay, well, so that's a bug. So somebody needs to look at that.
I got it.
Can you try dividers goes to center just for kicks? I wonder if that was a docs error.
I don't know. But either way, it should get fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyway, we've got things to do with grid, and we have some kind of roadmap of where to go next with this. And the first thing is kind of trying out named positions for things and see how that works. An association format for the right-hand side of existing options. Seems reasonable to people. I mean, look, this is just painfully obscure.
Yes.
No
No, I
doubt
don't.
about that.
I don't think anybody's going to disagree with you about that.
Wow, look at that syntax. That's wild.
I was gonna say the only thing worse than writing those is parsing them.
Well, okay, fair enough. But, okay.
Oh yes, the rectangle syntax. I forgot. I knew about this one, but I forgot about it.
I completely forgot about this. I completely forgot. I mean, that's an amusing thing. I would have been able to use that a bunch of times.
Mhm.
Here's another
Yeah.
question. How much should we push for a GUI? Or is a GUI going to be horrible too?
Not sure.
I mean, the
I
GUI
think
could do
that's a
that
question for John. I mean,
I-
although there is
Go
the option to, it's not called the option navigator. What is that thing that Kevin has
Option.
worked on?
Option inspector.
It's no, not the option inspector. It was this thing to sort of dynamically. I mean, there has been some work on this. I don't think it's any build in any build, but Brett, do you know what I'm talking about?
I vaguely remember it, and I don't remember what it was called.
Okay. Anyway, so there has been some work on GUI for such things, and we, like I said, these are questions for John.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move on then.
Ethan, do you need me for the information stuff?
I probably not.
Okay, then I'm gonna take
Okay.
off. So
Okay. See you. Bye.
See ya.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
So,
I mean, I can tell you things that are ugly, like that font is just way, way, way too big there.
Well, you complained, I guess, about the header last week. So, and I was like,
Okay,
well,
but
that's
I'm also going to tell you that this font is way too big. I don't know how it ends up being so big.
well, that's the problem of forcing fonts into objects, right? So you have, we decreed some font size for data object. So now it's using that font size.
But it
even
shouldn't
though
be
it's,
using the size. It should be using the style, but not the size.
Inherited size, maybe at best.
well, yes, but that's not how, right? That's not how design typically specs them. They typically give us a spec in some number of points, and most people who are not me will just use that.
Okay, so
instead
that's
of
wrong. So we need to go chase that one. Okay, so
Okay.
that's that. Now these headers. Okay, I don't think these headers are right, and my reason for saying that is it's sort of a detailed piece of metadata what this is, because most of the time it's totally obvious and you know what it is. So the fact that this feels like it's the most,
Well,
dramatic
first,
part
is it
of
correct? Does Billy think that's, I was in the meetings when we designed these. I thought they were tiny, like really tiny. But it's been a while.
Yeah, I'm not. It's been a while. I'm not sure. I think they used to
Can
be
you
a little
look
bit
it up?
smaller though.
So maybe it's just a bug. So who built them as they are right now?
That'd be me. I mean, they were to spec. We had started with tiny ones. They were hard to see. We increased the size somewhat, but made it smaller than the sub heading. We could certainly play around with making it
Okay,
smaller.
I think it's wrong. Okay, so and it might help if it was in italics, possibly. I'm not sure. It needs to make it clear that it's metadata.
We want to de-emphasize it and make sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems wrong. So this is a detailed design thing. I don't think there's any more to say about this. I mean, Billy could mock it up right here, just make it a bit smaller. This seems straightforward. Just a small glitch.
right, right, but we also have ones which don't have the subheading, which I don't know how that fits into that. But
What's an example?
well, those four
Yeah.
right in front of you.
Yeah. That's okay. I mean, if it's smaller, it's okay.
Well, I think that's the same size as the ones you were complaining about.
No, I know, but I'm saying if you make this smaller, it's
Oh, I
still
see.
going to be okay.
I think roughly if the font sizes match there, right? If it's roughly the same font size as color space, we're in the right ballpark.
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so like as it says, this is a sort of mostly an FYI, partly because it evolved since you saw it, and partly because some of what you were told was wrong. So as I recall that we use sort of bluish things for data-driven icons and gray for generic icons.
Wow, I didn't know that. I mean, I could have guessed, but I didn't know that.
Okay. Well, it's what we've been doing since V9.
Wow. Okay.
So
Good idea.
Right, and so porters, etc. They're exactly what Jeremy. Right, so Jeremy did review this, and I took the exact RGB setting he gave me and put it in all those things.
So what are we discussing here?
Right, so you didn't like the icons for the new structured matrices. They have been improved, or at least some of them have been improved. And the others are using, I will point out, are using exactly what we've been doing.
What did I not like? I mean, which side, the left or the right?
The left.
I don't have a big problem with these. I mean, what I'm concerned about now is the thing that our node has been chasing, which is some insanities about the fact that it takes 0.01 seconds to do something and then 10 seconds to typeset it because it's trying to draw this beautiful picture that nobody's even going to see.
Well, I have not been called into that bug report. If it is, then that's a bug that should be fixed. I mean, the time limit. The time limit I use for most of these things is like it's a second or less. I don't remember exactly how long it is.
It should be much less than that, because I'll tell you why. The place where I've been toasted on this is I've got a table of 100 of these things. See, it's horrifying.
I don't think it's that common to produce 100 in a single.
Well, it's common to produce other kind. It is common to produce. This is something we didn't think of. Okay, we thought this is going to be one produced per output line, and it isn't. There are plenty of places where you produce many of them.
Right, but it can't be less than, say, 1/10 of a second, or the visualization functions just won't finish in time, no matter how many.
Fine. What we should do. We can't make it for a size 1,000,000 matrix. There is no way we can make something that will, draw it in reasonable time. And
actually, I think a size 1,000,000 matrix we actually can handle. But
all right, okay, fine. Well, whatever.
But yes, we do. We also do have size limits. So certainly above, I'm pretty sure above 1,000,000. And with like permutation matrix, you go up above 30 by 30, and it'll use the generic icon because it only stores the permutation. So actually, just generating the
I
plot.
get it. Okay, so. My point is, I think, look, if we had to go to generic icons only, I think, unless it's really tiny, I think that would not be a crime. Okay? I think that it is much worse to have any possibility that there's significant typesetting time. And I think that downsampling or random sampling to get some idea of what the thing looks like would be just fine.
Are you suggesting that I am so incredibly stupid that I'm not downsampling?
No, I'm not suggesting that, actually. I have no idea.
because they're right. All these in matrix plots, they're all limited to 30 by 30 points.
So you downsample before you plot.
Yes. Or I rely on matrix plot. For things that I know matrix plot will do a good job itself. I just trust matrix plot. Yeah.
I didn't know it did that. I think it downsamples at much higher values. I think you'd have to parameterize the downsampling because you're going for 30 by 30. A matrix plot has never seen a plot that small.
Oh, it has. I forget the name of the option, but you can tell it don't produce more than 30 by 30 points.
Well, but
and it's pretty darn fast.
Max plot points.
Max plot points.
Okay. Sandra is commenting that for Polygon, this is really bad. I know that's not your area.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, so
and
that's
I
for
am
Avery to take that. Because, I mean, this is something our node is supposed to be dealing with. Just go look at all of these and make sure that none of them are slow. I don't have evidence that your ones, by the way, Itai, are slow. Okay. I just have evidence that there are summary blobs that are slow.
I think Polygon, it's typesetting, not rendering, right? It's not generating the image, but it's typesetting this weird blob. I've run into that too. And a lot of times you can get huge lists of polygons.
Yeah, but I don't understand what we're talking about here, because the fact is, the issue is, you know, if I say, how do I get a lot of polygons? I just say random polygon. Okay, so I make a table of oh, for God's freaking sake, look at this. I mean, that was just stupid. I mean, it was like, I'm sure that the actual computation time there is blindingly, oops.
Yeah, that'll be milliseconds.
Yep.
Right.
So
And now, well, okay. So now there are two potential issues. One is, right, so you could time how much 2 boxes on that takes. And then there's also how long it takes to render in the front end.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some issue, and I don't remember the details, but yeah,
Okay.
if you do the input and do //2 boxes, I'm curious, and you know, absolute timing of it, that would be interesting.
Which
So take this table and just do 2 boxes of it, semicolon, and see how long that takes.
Oops, what am I doing?
So not super fast, but not terrible, right? That's
Go to 200 or 300 though for quantity.
right. And I think part of this is that
it takes a lot longer to render to typeset it
right
than 1.5.
Yeah, and I think right. So part of the slowness is definitely rendering in the front end, and I think it's that there's a bunch of dynamics in there to tell you, right, when you open it up, all these dynamics.
Yeah, I know. So there's something stupid about that, if I might say so. I mean,
right. Yeah, but I will just say that Charles did something pretty custom there. These aren't exactly normal summary boxes.
Although I've run into things like this with huge lists of dates and huge lists of geopositions.
That was 2.5 seconds, according to my stopwatch.
You get into like 1,000. I mean, I've done it with, you know, put 1,000 there. I mean,
yeah, I know. We can get it to fail, right?
And it's all front end, so you could 2-box that, and it won't take that long to create the boxes.
So listen, this is a speed chase, so to speak. We are trying to develop a methodology for doing these. This is just another one to do.
Right. And we sped up some, right? There was something with like 9 patch versus something else background, and that we did some speed up for 1301. But yeah, I don't know that we fully understand what all of the speed issues are with Polygon.
Right. Well, I'm not sure it's specific to Polygon. I think it's summary boxes in general, and particularly ones that have some kind of dynamic content in them.
Right.
Okay. Anything else we need to cover right now today?
Don't think so.
Great. Thanks all.